Hi.
I know. Okay, now we're on Facebook. Wonderful. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to History Matters, and so does coffee. Um, Today we're going to be talking about uh, Haiti, because there's just so much to say about America's relationship with Haiti. But before we do that, I'm going to turn to my partner in crime, Annie, who's going to explain the rules of the game.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Annie Evans from New American History, and it is always my joy to be with you every Friday morning with Joanne. So here's how this works. If you are with us on Zoom or through Facebook, we would love for you to continue to engage in the chat. But if you have questions about today's topic, please put those down below in the Q&A. I'll be back in about 30 minutes and we'll have a great discussion. See y'all in a little bit.
Okay. And if you are here for the first time or one of the first times, definitely say so in chat because you will get a robust welcome from the History Matters community. Oh, I didn't even look. 234th episode, 235th. I can't see chat right now, so I don't know. But anyway, we've done a lot of episodes. Okay, so Haiti. So I will admit that I pondered yesterday because there were several topics that I could address. First, I thought about lying. I thought lies and the lying liars who lie the lies was my thought. And I thought, well, I could do that, but I don't think that's sort of it for me. I went through a number of other topics. And then I thought to myself, oh, Haiti. Haiti and how Americans and America generally has treated Haiti. And I thought, of course, about my time period, the early republic, and how the United States treated Haiti then. And how can you not think about what's happening to Haitians in Springfield, Ohio now? So that is what I wanted to talk about, because it seemed to me as I thought about this topic and decided to write about it, that in both cases, in the 1790s and the early 19th century, and now, how the United States and Americans are treating Haiti and Haitians, in the first instance, it's both, now it's really Haitians, really reflects a lot, really says a lot about the United States at that moment. So I think the title for today was like Haiti, a mirror of for America or something, because I think for reasons of race, that Americans are always in one way or another conflicted about Haiti because on the one hand, particularly in the early republic, they follow in the American example, and they expose American racism for all that it is. And both of those things are happening at the same time. So at any rate, that's what I want to talk about today. Now, Haiti, before it was Haiti, it was Saint-Domingue. And it ends up being, as we'll hear momentarily, the first independent Black state in the New World, a successful slave revolt. Now, um, the period that we're talking about now and why things became particularly heated in Saint-Domingue has to do with the French Revolution, which also caused an uproar in the United States. Saint-Domingue was a French colony at the time, and the white population of Saint-Domingue broke over the revolution, with some people going with revolutionaries and some people becoming essentially royalists. So the white population divided on Saint-Domingue. Apparently, the mixed race population on the island saw this as a moment to campaign for civil rights in some way, and the enslaved population saw this moment of upset as a time to organize and plan a rebellion, which starts in 1791. Now, this is all happening, Saint-Domingue, which America had relationships with. It's a sugar island. It's very produced a lot of sugar, produced a lot of wealth. The United States was dealing with it one way or another in trade. So that was the American relationship with Haiti through this point. American leaders, not surprisingly, had conflicted, contradictory, and sort of flip-flopping feelings about what was going on in Haiti. So initially, American leaders wanted to support the white plantation owners who were fleeing by the tens of thousands once the rebellion broke out. So there were massive numbers of white people from Saint-Domingue, many of them bringing their enslaved people with them, coming to the United States. And this was something that clearly got the attention of Americans, and in particular, got the attention of Americans who were enslaving people. Because the idea was these crazy revolutionary Black people from Saint-Domingue are going to come here and they're going to spread revolution and it's going to be horrible. That's much of what the Federalists were saying about French revolutionaries from France. Right? There's going to be social upset. This is horrible. The French Revolution is going to put us into chaos. So some of that was said about this arrival of refugees from Saint-Domingue, but the feeling about the white refugees and the Black refugees, surprise, surprise, was very different. And I'll mention here, let me come down to the title here. There is a book I recommend, which I've used before in my courses, about the early republic's response to what was going on in Haiti. It's called Encountering Revolution, Haiti and the Making of the Early Republic. And the woman's name who wrote it is Ashley, A-S-H-L-I, White. And that offers a good, really study of the sorts of stuff I'm going to be talking about very briefly this morning. So at any rate, this rebellion breaks out. It's remarkable that this is happening, a slave uprising and the becoming of a Black independent nation, although it takes a while for that to happen, certainly attracts attention, and particularly for the United States, a slaveholding nation. Now, this is happening and this begins to build in the period when America drifts into its quasi-war with France. So American relations with France are tangled. Haiti, in and of itself, French revolutionaries are reaching out to Haiti, claiming that the revolutionary government is going to be anti-slavery. So there's confusion in Haiti, and then, it's the French, so then the British become involved. There's a lot going on in Haiti, and I won't go into it in great detail here, but there's a lot of confusion down there. But what's interesting to track is what American presidents do with their policies and what they think should happen with Haiti and how Americans generally respond. So, as I said, initially their support in part because it was a big part of the rhetoric of the early republic once the government gets going, and Jefferson himself is a big promoter of this kind of rhetoric, that the United States is going to create a spark of liberty which is going to spread around the globe. And many Americans saw the French Revolution as evidence of that spark coming from the United States, spreading to France. Look at us. We're so great. We broke away from the mother country. We are a new kind of nation. We are a democratic republic, and we will help spread this feeling around the globe. And look what France is doing. They're overturning monarchy. Yay, us. Well, when this happens on Saint-Domingue, that spark of liberty to many people becomes more threatening. So although it grows from the French Revolution, it grows from the rhetoric and the spirit of the French Revolution, and it's certainly of a league of a sort, with the American Revolution. This is the age of revolution for a reason, right? That there's a spirit spreading, and there's an what do I want to call it? A logic spreading, and political sensibilities and ideas spreading, and there's a contagion of liberty, which is a very academic-y statement, but there's a reason why it's the age of revolutions. They're feeding each other. So at any rate, now you have in Saint-Domingue a Black rebellion inspired by feelings about liberty. So what does the United States want to do about this? Well, as the French Revolution is causing upset and America's in the quasi-war with France, as I said a moment ago, it's a big question. And this is the period when you have the Alien and Sedition Acts. Federalists are in power, late 1790s. The Alien and Sedition Acts are a response to people feeling threatened by France and French revolutionaries. So the idea is, America needs to tamp down and get control over the aliens in the country, which of course the people they're particularly worried about at this point really are French people who are going to contaminate the United States. And the Sedition Act is about not attacking the government because the government is so weak it will collapse in a time of crisis. So anyway, that's all born of the fear of this moment. John Adams, who's president at this point, decides he's going to give some aid to Toussaint Louverture, who's leading the rebellion. He wants to preserve trade with Saint-Domingue. That's very useful and profitable. He's thinking a little bit about piracy. The Barbary pirates are an ongoing pain for Americans in this period, and he's probably thinking, I get to preserve trade, and I don't want to do anything that's going to spark somehow or other piracy. So he extends aid to what's going on in Saint-Domingue. Then Thomas Jefferson becomes president, Mr. Spark of Liberty, and he immediately cuts aid. And he's particularly worried that that revolution is going to spread to the United States. He refuses to accept Haitian independence, and actually America does not accept Haitian independence until 1862, which is quite something. But at any rate, you could see the conflict even just in the person of Thomas Jefferson. Spark of Liberty, yay! Uh-oh, not that spark. That spark spread to enslaved people. And what happens if that spreads back here? What will our enslaved population do? That's bad. That's scary. We don't like this. Between 1791 and 1810, to really emphasize what I'm saying here as far as the impact of what's going on in Haiti on the United States, more than 25,000 refugees arrived on American shores from, again, Saint-Domingue, now Haiti. For a little while, again, going all the way back under Washington, Jefferson, as Secretary of State, extends a little bit of money and military support to help the planters, the white population. He's not doing this on his own, clearly, it's under Washington, but again, the conflicted flip-flopping policy towards Saint-Domingue. Over time, again, these fears of an army, quote unquote, as actually the Secretary of State under Adams says, an army of Black troops might conquer all the British Isles and put in jeopardy our southern states. That's the fear. So now, Adams on the one hand wants to preserve relations. On the other hand, people are really terrified. And this is the part that makes me think of where we are now. Beginning in roughly 1793, people in the South begin blaming things on the influence of Saint-Domingue. So, for example, there were some fires in Charleston in 1793, and people immediately said, it's the French blacks. They're the ones doing it, the French blacks. There's no evidence for that. But things that happened in this period, people, surprise, surprise, had a tendency to point the finger at Haitian Black, either free Blacks or people coming in with the people who enslaved them. One way or another, people are pointing the finger and saying, that's who it is. It's them. They're bad. They're spreading craziness and violence. We need to do something about this. This is a crisis. So essentially, when push comes to shove, America sort of flip-flops a little on a high level. Aid, no aid, aid, no aid. But Americans generally point fingers at these Black revolutionaries. That, in part, is what the echo that set me off and wanting to talk about what we're talking about today. Now, let's turn for a minute to Ohio. So apparently, and these are going to be rough numbers, and I will say right up front, I did not have time to do in-depth research, so I might be off, but I think they're close. There are roughly 12 to 15,000 immigrants in Clark County, Ohio, which includes Springfield. Roughly 10 to 12,000 of them are Haitian. And part of how that happened is some Haitians went to that part of Ohio, saw that there were employment opportunities, saw that it was a pleasant place to live, spread the word through friends and family, so more people came. And that's that's just the immigration story. That's what happens is you get enclaves because some people go and they discover something good and they tell others and they tell others and then people come and you end up with little communities of people where it makes sense. If you know people and they tell you it's good, you're going to trust the people you know and potentially come. Now, the governor of Ohio said, um, explained in the face of what's going on right now, that a lot of companies have been moving into Springfield in the recent past, that Ohio is growing and Springfield really is growing. And quote, he said, these Haitians came in to work for these companies. What the companies tell us is that they're very good workers. They're happy to have them there. And frankly, that's helped the economy. So that's what's going on in Ohio. In 2023, Biden made Haitians eligible for a new program that would open more legal pathways for people to get into the United States. So, in a sense, to ease some of the pressure on the border, there will be ways in which people can actually work their way through the system. They will be vetted, they will have a sponsor, they will be on a form of parole, but there will be different legal, systematic ways in which people can get into the United States legally, and Haitians were included among the people that were encompassed by that new idea. And so all of this together is why, at this moment, with what appears to be a random story that a woman posted on Facebook that proved to be not true, and the only other thing you could point to that sort of people grabbed at to prove that this was happening was somewhere in Ohio, a woman was found near a dead cat with blood on her hands and mouth. She wasn't Haitian. She was born in Ohio. So somehow or other, we get political opportunists who see the rumor on Facebook, which tells you something about our time, too. If you're looking for trouble to use for your own purposes, you can find it. And we get into this moment where suddenly Haitians in Springfield are being attacked, are being threatened by people in Springfield, bomb threats, schools closing, town halls and looking forward to elections being canceled. So basically canceling democracy. We're in this moment where the Haitians in Springfield haven't done anything, but they've been targeted. And some of the people doing the targeting, particularly J.D. Vance, admitted on video that, yeah, he's kind of making this up, but he wants to attract attention to what he has to say. So that's useful. Okay. So in the first case that I talked about, and in the case that's going on right now, what we see are Americans venting, on the one hand, for the early years, their fears and their hate and their conflicts and their desire to be a certain kind of people with the realities of being scared to be that certain kind of people. Yeah, spark of liberty. Uh-oh. Who's getting the spark? And now, where America, supposedly a place where immigrants come because it's a place of promise. We are a nation of immigrants is a cliche, but it's a true cliche, right? People come here because it's a place where you can come and you can make something of yourself. And Americans now, with a political campaign gunning what's going on now, are basically just using race. Trump and Vance, and now people beyond them, are using race to scare people, to create the idea that there's some kind of frenzy of danger from Haitians, which the same pattern of people in the South thinking that fires are being set somehow or other by Haitians. There's fires, it must be Haitians. It's the same sort of racist knee-jerk panic in both cases. So as much as the United States can be and should be a place that can live up to the ideals it speaks of and that it supports, Haiti as a country, and it is a country right now with crushing poverty, Haiti sort of exposes the United States for what it is at a given moment. And there's a lot of that kind of exposure going on now. It's beyond ugly, what we're seeing now, and it's pointless and groundless. So it's just racist. That's what it is. It's just racist. There's nothing more to it. That really tells you a lot about where we are in the United States at this time. And in a way, with a different sort of echo, that's what I was talking about in the 1790s and the early 19th century, where Americans, particularly Americans with political power, are saying, yeah, we kind of like that, they're kind of doing what we want people to do. Oh, no, don't come here. Stay away. You're scary. And if bad things happen here, it's your fault. Same conflict between ideals and realities, between theory and rhetoric, and ground level realities of having to deal with things in your everyday life. Those ground level realities test the ideals and test the theory and test these virtuous things that you can claim for yourself and for your nation. But when they're put to the test, that's the moment where you need to think good and hard about how you're responding to the moment, what you're deciding is a threat. Why are you deciding it's a threat? Is it really a threat? And if it isn't, what does that say about us as a nation? What does that say about you, about us? That's what people should be thinking about in the current moment. What is this current craze to blame Haitians for doing something they didn't do, to drum up fears and allow some on the right to play the never-ending record of, see, I'm old, record, of immigrants. It's not a caravan this time, it's Haitians in Springfield. Same fear, same idea, same knee-jerk kind of way of getting people riled up. Americans should stop and think and look at themselves and think about what this means about us. Such a revealing thing, and it should expose to us the ways in which we're being driven by racism and partisan panic. It should expose to us something about this political moment. It does reveal something about this political moment. We should step back and think about it and think about what this all means rather than just being swept up. I know I say this so often, in the emotion of the moment. I mean, even here as I'm speaking, I'm emotional about what's going on. It's hard not to be for one reason or another. And whether it's that you think this is remarkably unfair and this shouldn't be happening, or if you have decided that you're going to be scared of Haitians in Ohio for whatever reason you've decided to be scared of them, one way or another, rather than succumbing to fear or panic, it might be useful to pause and ask yourself why you're feeling that and what the actual facts on the ground are. And I realize we live in a fact-challenged time. But that said, it's not that hard if you Google around a little bit, go to some reputable sources to find out what's really going on. Okay, I think I'm going to end there. I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but I don't know what it is. So at any rate, thank you for the mug alert. Um, so for those of you who are new, every week I have a mug that relates in some way or another to the theme. And I brought this on multiple levels. Maybe African American studies. I brought it in part because I think some people have a tendency to take African American studies and put it over here in a box. And the point that I want to make is, oh no, 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 it's us. Of course it's us. It's the American story. So the mug may say African American history, but the story that I told today is a story of how we are bound together in this history, always have been, always will be, and that needs recognition.
Good choice. Good choice.
Okay.
All right. The chat is particularly active today. And we also have some great questions. So let's dig in.
Okay.
Sydney, our good friend and one of our favorite undergraduate students who tunes in very faithfully. Sydney asks, what is at stake in terms of foreign relations in this election cycle?
Wow. That's such a big question that I can't answer it all. Um, I know. Boy, Sydney, you do ask really good questions.
I know, right?
There's a lot at stake, right? And the most obvious part of that question, it has to do with Russia and what Russia, its relations with the United States, the fact that Russia, as far as the Ukraine is concerned, it is basically just taking away, claiming things for itself. That's ultimately what started off the problem in Ukraine. The fact that some Americans can't see that, and that there are some Americans who think that our best friends in the world are the Russians, that's a big foreign affairs problem. And that, in the case of the Russians, and I suppose potentially in the case of the Chinese, that boils down on a domestic level to people who also want to interfere in our electoral process. We've already had a separate episode about that, where I talked about how George Washington, his farewell address, that's one of the things he warns about. Be careful of foreign influence in our politics, because as a republic, as a democratic republic, we are grounded on the power in our country comes from the people, the American people. And you can fool the American people. You can get their emotions going, and they will go down paths they should not go. That's why democracy made people, like Hamilton, it scared people because it felt so vulnerable in so many ways. So in a sense, what Washington was saying is, foreign nations are going to totally take advantage of the fact that the public rules here. So please be alert to what's going on in foreign nations. We're seeing that play out in a really real and ongoing way now. So that's part of what's at stake. There are many other things at stake as well, right? What is America's relationship with the rest of the world? What organizations do we join and belong to? What allies do we have, and how does that function? Are we going to be just America first and all the time only? Or are we going to actually be actors on a world stage in a positive sense? Are we actually going to be part of a worldwide conversation about what's happening in the world, and particularly now with democracy at risk all over the world? This is a good time to engage in that kind of conversation, not to withdraw from it. So that's the beginning of an answer. But that's a big part of what's at stake. There are many things that are at stake right now. And, that's one, obviously, the survival of democracy. I know fewer people do this, but for a long time, I've been saying this for many years. And initially, people were like, you're hysterical, which is, of course, what people say about women. You're exaggerating. You're, trying to get your fear mongering. Me and others were like, really don't think so. Think that democracy is being undercut in a lot of ways, eroded, and now it's just more visible to more people. But that obviously is a huge part of what this election means as well.
All right, Ben Hughes, who's been with us, I think, for a bit. Ben says JD Vance has been perpetuating the pet eating rumors. Are there other disastrous VP candidate picks from history that come to mind? Now,
Are there
Ben's opinion. I'm not saying that that's, the opinion of the National Council of History Ed or us. That's his words.
Are there other VP candidate controversies? Is that the question?
Or disastrous, like
Disasters.
It's Ben's words.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about during elections, or if you're just talking about during vice presidencies, right? I see someone I can see. I should actually have chat open. What am I doing? I had it closed. Let me catch up here. So yeah, someone just said Andrew Johnson, Sarah Palin. Right, Ellen. I was just about to say, well, that he wasn't campaigning at the time, but that vice president who killed somebody when he was vice president, Aaron Burr is kind of problematic too. Sure, there have been moments when vice presidents have been miserable in office. There have been moments. What was the name of the candidate who kind of imploded on stage? General, oh, he just looked lost. Why am I here? There you
Oh,
go. Who was that? Who am
I know
I and why am I here?
his face.
Stockdale.
Yeah.
Stockdale. So yeah, yeah. There have been moments like this. But it's one thing for someone to have a bad moment at a debate, say something stupid, do something stupid. It's another thing for someone to aggressively campaign in a way that's grounded on anger and outrage in this way. It's not that no vice presidential candidate has done that before, but this one, in this moment, is really gunning his engines. I see other people, yes, please clap. There's so many of them. Right, there are all kinds. But what we're watching now isn't just people saying something stupid or making a dumb statement. This is a campaign of hate and lies. And I don't say that lightly. I say that because Vance himself said he's making it up and he's gonna, I think yesterday, didn't he say, I'm gonna call them illegal aliens anyway, even though they're here legally. He knows what he's doing. And he's admitted he's making it up. So that's in this moment with the ongoing erosion of democratic structures and standards, that has a real impact.
All right. Our friend Freda is from Erie, PA, and has been with us quite a long time now. And she's asking, what was the population of Haiti composed of before there were African people enslaved and the French?
Well, I can't go all the way back in time. I will say that Saint-Domingue had a white minority. It was a largely black island uh, by a lot. And that was true of many Caribbean islands at the time. They were sugar islands. They were mostly about growing and selling sugar. They were often absentee landlord islands where plantation owners wouldn't even necessarily be living there most of the time. So a lot of them were black majority islands, and Saint-Domingue fell into that category.
Okay. Our good friend Clinton from New York. Clinton asks, have Americans always treated what became Haiti and the Dominican Republic so drastically different?
Oh, good question. I actually don't know the answer to that question. Someone might be able to figure that out, but I just did not look into it. And I don't know.
I threw a couple of bunk links in the chat, Clinton, and I think there's a few things in there that might help with that. And a refurbished bunk exhibit we just refreshed with some newer data in it. So maybe check out those links I threw in the chat. I know it went by really fast.
Well, and that's an important question in part because it's the same island, right? It's talking about nationality in addition to race. I don't know the answer, but that's actually a really interesting question.
Yeah, Clinton's great. All right. Our good friend Gloria says, were the Haitian immigrants part of Biden's program, or was there an overflow of illegal immigrants in Springfield?
So as I understand it, the people in Springfield were largely part of Biden's program, and that they're there under that system of parole, where they have a sponsor and they've been vetted. I can't say that that's true for everybody who is there, but the idea that the Haitians who are in Springfield are all an illegal population and need to be immediately deported is false. We've always had, in one way or another, a system in place for people to come here legally and work their way through the system and get vetted in one way or another and be in the system itself. So, the idea that there are hundreds of thousands of people teeming over the border and that's how we get people coming here from other countries is not true. And even people coming over the border, if they're seeking asylum and they're doing that legally through the system, then that's legally and through the system, right? I think right now, because of a lot of the rhetoric, we're lumping all immigrants, all immigration into one big category of bad. And that's not only not helpful, that's dangerous and not true. The caravan man, the
Right?
caravan,
Right.
the idea that there's this, caravan on its way eternally, the hordes, right? They're about to come. It's the oldest trope. It's the most cliched thing. And it has a kind of, again, I've used this word I think 3 or 4 times today, knee-jerk immediacy that people are like, oh no, they are coming for us. And people respond emotionally and sometimes dangerously with violence or threats. And there's a reason why people hit that target when they want to have a political influence of some kind.
Yeah. All right. Our next question is coming from Troy, our good friend Troy. He says, thanks for all the hard work in bringing us all together. Might we cite the 9th commandment, thou shalt not bear thou shalt not bear false witness as a way of appealing to those on the right, in the religious right, as a way of countering stories based on these lies.
Oh, it would be nice.
Oh,
Whoop,
okay.
I'm going to pause for a moment. Okay, we're back.
You edit that out. She's really good at that. I was like,
Thank you, Claire.
did I do? That's so funny.
About not bearing false witness. The question was, should that commandment, should we be using that when we deal with religious groups? So, I don't think at this point, for some people who are in this political moment and have strong religious feelings, that that kind of argument is going to have a lot of impact. Again, I don't think reason is playing a big enough role in what's going on now, particularly and actually ever and always concerning religion and politics. So it would be nice to be able to say, people aren't supposed to lie, and he just said he's lying. You can, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that having any influence at all at this point, because partly many people don't believe their lies, right? We can say it's a lie. We can say there's no evidence. We can say there's actually evidence to the contrary. We can show the receipts. We can do whatever. And again, in this fact challenged time, some people are going to believe whatever the heck they want to believe. This is why I almost talked about lying today, because and who knows, I might do it next week. No, and it's very true, Carolee. You cannot lump all the religious people together. And that's an important qualifier here. And that's not what I intend to do at all. But there are some religious extremists of a certain kind. I'm trying to hedge myself in. I do not mean to say all religious people are doing this, but there are some who are in a place. Actually, this is an interesting way of thinking about it. In a place of faith and not necessarily a place of fact. They're not necessarily contradictory, but they're not always the same. And I want to offer an example of this that I went through in college, actually. Hey, Sydney. Um, so when I was, I don't know, sophomore in college, I took a religion course. It was a Bible course, and it really just worked its way through the Bible as a historical document. And it started as obviously in the Old Testament. And as we went through the Old Testament, everything I assumed as a Jew was disproven, right? It was like, well, this never happened. Excuse me, and this never happened. And this didn't happen. And this also didn't happen. And there wasn't really one Exodus. Like historically speaking, the Bible has issues. And I had never thought of it that way before. And I began to get more and more conflicted about what I was hearing. And I reasoned my way to a point where I thought the Jewish people aren't the chosen people. And that's what I was raised in religious school to think. And if that's the case, what does it mean to be Jewish? Um, and I had a real trauma about it. And I went to the rabbi on campus, and he said to me something that's along the lines of what I just said here, which is why the story came up. He said, faith is its own thing. And faith doesn't necessarily always rely on facts. And you can be a person of faith and feel a certain way about Judaism, and that feeling of faith could be true to you, and you can accept the fact that historically speaking, other things happened. Faith is its own entity. And I had just never thought of it that way before. But that, that question, that issue of what is faith and what are facts and how do they mix or not mix, really, really interesting. And I think about it often just because I firsthand experienced it, right? Oh no, what does being Jewish mean? And the rabbi was like, well, it means what you think it means to you because that's what faith is. But that's, that can be problematic in certain realms. So anyway, hopefully that sheds some light on what we're talking about here. I'm trying to catch up with this chat is like, whew,
Good luck with that.
I know.
I love the archives, but okay, we have.
No, Carolee was saying, yeah, no, I understand you weren't saying I'm lumping religious people together, but you're right. No one should be, and that's true for almost all the kind of people we're talking about today, right? That's true of Haitians too, right? You can't talk about people as big blobs of assumption. You can't, or you shouldn't. People do. But that's important, really important to bear in mind.
And a lot of people are pointing out Christian is very different from white Christian nationalist.
Well, that's part of what I'm saying is, yeah. What does the Jewish community feel about Trump and MAGA? Ooh, I'm not gonna answer that question. I will say that that I saw Trump yesterday say something along the lines of, if I lose, it'll be the fault of the Jews. Google it. I think he was speaking at an, yeah.
Mm.
Uh, that's right. That's right. Speak for all the Jews. I can't speak for all the Jews.
Right.
I used to joke that people imagine, like people would say to me, what do the Jews think about, like out in the world, not here where we're actually having this kind of conversation. People say, what do the Jews think about? And I thought, what do you guys think? There's like some basement with people with headphones on going, do, 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 Jewish headquarters. Here's what we think. It's like, well, no. I don't know what Jews think generally, but I know if people say, if I lose this election, it's going to be because of the Jews. That never ends well
No, no.
for anybody, and particularly for the Jews. It just I just had to put down my phone and walk away last night when I saw that. Yeah, I won't go on with that, but yeah.
Okay. We have a few more questions. I'm going to combine a couple of Dave's questions. Dave's with us frequently, and we love Dave. He says, at what point does free speech become problematic when that speech causes bomb threats, school closings, public office buildings being closed? When does hate speech no longer have the protection of the First Amendment, and have the journalists failed to frame this whole cats and dogs issue by not getting citizens to really think?
There's a lot of stuff in that question.
Fine too, but
Right, still, I mean, obviously, this is the most cliched thing to say in the world. Obviously, there are boundaries to free speech, meaning, and this is the cliche, you can't walk into a theater and yell fire and think like, woohoo, that's okay. There are things you shouldn't say and things you shouldn't do. And we have a judicial system that can help us sort through how that works, how that functions, what can be said and what can't be said. And yes, we bang up against the limits of that and we redefine the limits over time again and again and again. It's messy. But free speech is also essential, right? So free speech is a fundamental part of a democratic nation. People need to be able to protest. They need to be able to critique the people who have power. They need to be able to express their thoughts to others, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's vital. It's important. It's key. But yes, it can go too far. And you could say, okay, so now Vance has said this. It's putting people in danger. When does free speech cross the line into terrorism is a different question, but there are lines and there are boundaries, and I can't sit here and tell you what the lines and boundaries are. But free speech doesn't mean you can say anyone to any person at any time with no repercussions. That's the thing I think that often gets left behind, right? Say what you want, but you're accountable for what you say. And sometimes you're going to say or do something that has a big, bad, negative, violent impact. And that might weigh on you in some way. I think I've talked about this a lot of times before, that we live in a crisis of accountability where nobody wants to be accountable for anything, right? They do something bad, they do something illegal, and nobody feels, why am I being held accountable? And I think that that holds true on this broader level as well. I can say what I want. I don't know how many years ago it was that there were all of this screaming on social media about like free speech. I can say whatever I want at any time to any person. It's like, well, that's not what free speech means. Doesn't mean you can say anything all the time, whatever you want. It means you're free to speak, but that what you say may be dangerous or may have repercussions. That's just like the world. Like what you do and what you say has an impact. And depending on that impact, there might be repercussions. That's all I'm saying. I don't know who you are, Daniel, but bye, Daniel.
Daniel with us quite a bit. I think Daniel might have been with us in Utah when we did the live edition.
Oh, yay. Okay, Daniel. I don't know. I don't remember your name, but it's Daniel like going away forever, going away?
No, I think he just has to leave now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We always greet each other and say bye, like Carolee just.
Well, that I know, but
yeah.
Someone was giving like email addresses, and I was like, we don't want to lose anybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so John Howell. John, I'm not sure if you've been with us before. Maybe you have, and you're just now posting your first question, but welcome if this is your first time or amongst your first times. John's asking, Joanne, with Vance and Trump promoting in their minds, capitalizing on these racial fears from the influx of Haitians into Springfield, is there a comparison to be made with other immigrant groups? And he uses the example of the Irish in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and Italians, immigrants living there together as a community, looking for jobs in the steel industry. So he's asking, isn't this a story that almost every immigrant group could tell?
Well, in some way, yes. You can look through all of American history and find moments, particularly when there are waves of immigrants, more than a typical kind of trickle in, and an immediate response of hatred against that group, all the way back to the 1790s. That's a constant. And that's true. So the idea of hating a group of immigrants is certainly not new. The idea of hating a group of immigrants and entangling it with partisan politics is not new. The American Party, right? 19th century, you have people who are nativist and who are like, no foreigners, no Catholics. This is a longstanding American thread of thought and action. So yes, you're absolutely right that that's not new. But the other thing to say as a historian is history doesn't repeat, and every moment has its own conglomeration of factors, its own context, its own reality. So the form of that, the form of immigrant hate that we're seeing right now is bound up with our moment. And it has to do with our crisis of democracy, and it has to do with this moment in the world and how other nations and the United States are or aren't entangled. So that as much as we can say, as with so many things, good and bad, but ugly things, certainly, America has a long history of violence in politics, long history of hating immigrants, long history of being racist in a bazillion different kinds of ways, But each time, each moment when that happens is distinct and needs to be understood in and of itself, in addition to being seen as part of a larger pattern. I'm sounding very much like a historian here. But so yeah, what we're seeing now, this is why, when historians are careful, particularly in the current moment, like January 6th, this has never happened before. Aspects of it have never happened before. But you have to be careful that you're not saying violence has never been entangled in politics in this way before, right? There are things that have happened before, and we just become aware of them when some dramatic thing exposes them. Kind of in the way that I'm saying, how we're treating Haiti should expose a lot for us about what we're thinking and who we are at this moment.
Right. I think we can squeeze in two more questions. This one comes from Pax Linson. And Pax, I think you may also be fairly new to our group. If so, welcome. Pax says, in reference to the enclave thing, isn't that what white people did as they moved to the Wild West? Or is that just my brain on childhood Westerns?
Well, no, I mean, people went to the West in communities of various sorts, sure. I can't say, for sure it was a group of whatever, Hungarians. My background is partly Hungarian. But yeah, people, I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? That people, when they migrate somewhere, they go with people who feel like members of their community in some way or another, right? People who you trust in some way or another. The same was true of, Jewish migration from other countries, right? You get people who go someplace and then other people follow them and that's where they went. And then you end up with an enclave of people. So, that's not the entire definition of the Wild West. But it happened for sure. And there are, some of the depth of these enclaves. My mother's side of the family is Hungarian. And my step grandmother on that side had been living in this country for decades and still barely knew English because she lived among Hungarians. They just spoke Hungarian. She kind of didn't need to know a lot of English, right? And that happens. There are all kinds of places in the United States like that, right? Where there's so many people of one kind that they understand each other in a way that they hold on to. It's their culture, it's their identity. So yeah, that's part of what makes us who we are. That's part of why as a nation we embrace that. That's a distinctive thing about the United States.
Absolutely. All right. Great question, Pax. Thank you. Kathleen V, another one of our longtime friends in the community, says, a friend whose children and husband are of Jewish descent recently sent me a text saying anyone who thinks Trump is anti-Israel or anti-Jewish people is delusional, but provided no evidence. How has name calling been used to deflect truth throughout history, and how successful has name calling been?
Oh, name calling is kind of the game, right? Name calling is the game because if you can come up with a zingy kind of way of putting something and throw it out there, um, people will grab onto it, people will say it, people will repeat it, and there will be a truth to it because of the power of the way of putting something, not necessarily because of the actual truth of what's happening. So yeah, that's an ongoing, that's certainly not new in politics, that you come up with some kind of way of putting things that becomes the truth because of the way that it sounds, because of the way that it resonates and rings. So that's longstanding. That's part of, well, again, that's part of a democratic politics, right? You want to do something that people are going to grab onto, take a hold of, and run off with and spread to others. So that's part of the democratic process too.
Yep. All right. Uh, our friend Ben Hughes has another question. He says, on a lighter note, this might be a good way to end it. Thinking of Taylor Swift's endorsement of Harris, any truly impactful endorsements for candidates come to mind? Maybe Frank Sinatra with JFK.
Well, it is true. I mean, I don't know if I'm instantly going to be able to come up with examples of that, but that does and can have a huge influence, obviously. And that's a huge kind of demographic influence, right? Because if you're a celebrity for certain kinds of people, typically, older women and men like this person, and then that person supports a candidate, and then that person's supporters go. And obviously, Taylor Swift, although she has lots of different kinds of fans, there's a young demographic that is going to follow along with her. So, it happens a lot. It happens all the time. Taylor Swift is her own kind of entity of power and money and influence and spread. So her doing this, that's a major demographic sweep of a kind. What the impact of that will be, I have no idea. But the power of that is so undeniable that we got the post, "I hate Taylor Swift." And the only reason to say that is because Taylor Swift, there's power. She has a kind of power because a lot of people are at least are being influenced by her to register to vote, which is a good thing. That is a good thing. Register to vote. Vote however you want. But having more people register is a good thing. So yeah, this is the most obvious thing in the world to say, but I'll say it anyway. It every week that goes by, I think to myself, well, that week had a lot of news. Wow, there was a lot. And then the next week comes and it's like, oh, well, that 20 minutes had a lot of news. Doesn't it feel like it's like speeding up? It's like, and unfortunately, it's going to keep going until November. It feels like it's just impossible to keep up with the slew. I think, what did I think? Uh, someone look up for me how long ago it was. How long ago was it that Biden stepped out?
It was towards the end of July. It was 4 days after the debate. So whatever date the debate was.
So July 21. Okay, so like 5 weeks, 6 weeks. It's not a lot of time.
No, it feels like it though. It feels like it's been forever.
It feels like forever. If you do that, I said something somewhere on social media yesterday, and I can't even remember which crisis it was, but I was like, "Do you realize that this thing happened 21 days ago?" And it feels like, yeah, we live in weird times. I have so been not able to follow the chat today. Sane washing is a useful word, that I will say. I see someone just mentioned it. And yeah, right, Clinton. The best thing about what Taylor Swift is doing is getting people to register, and apparently a massive number of people are registering, and that's good. Edwin, well, Edwin Booth for Lincoln. Anyway, I won't tread down that path, but the fact is, yeah, celebrities, music, film, political celebrities, yeah, they're going to make a huge difference. And again, particularly in a democratic politics where people are moved by their feelings in addition to other things, that's going to have a kind of power. Wow.
We have a few questions, but it's exactly 11. So it's up to you.
Let's try another one.
Okay, so Freda is asking that voodoo is often associated with Haiti. And so do you think that accounts for some of the demonizing of the Haitians?
I think what's more important is that people want to demonize the Haitians right now. That's not a new fact. And I don't know, I can't tell you about the influence of voodoo among Haitians, but the fact of the matter is that suddenly it's important. That's about now. That's about us. And so, yeah, if people are looking for a reason to be suspicious of Haitians, well, there's one, right? Or if they're looking for a reason to explain away just basic racism, yeah, okay, we'll use that one. We're at a moment where some people are trying to rationalize hate, right? Well, it's grounded on facts that are not facts. Well, it's grounded on trends that are not trends. Well, right now there's a lot of hate floating around out there, and sometimes the game for some politically minded people is to find a way to justify the hate. What can I use to justify the hate? That's that's what I teach my undergrads. Bad history is I'm going to dig in the past and cherry pick things that will prove the thing I want to prove. That's not how good historians work. Good historians look at the evidence and see what it is telling you, and then begin to think about what's happening. If you look for something in history, you will find it. that's not necessarily interpreting the evidence. And the same is true here.
Yeah. Okay. We only have 2 questions left.
Okay, let's try one more.
Okay. Gloria asked, has Haiti ever been out of crushing poverty since, has it ever been prosperous and independent as a nation after the revolution?
Well, it was independent. I don't know about its prosperity. That I can't tell you. It has a long history of struggling with poverty, that I know, but I can't tell you throughout all of its history. I'm sure that, as with any other country, there have been fluctuations of one kind or another, but I can't tell you in detail about those fluctuations.
And the last one, very short. Could Vance be sued? This is from Freda. I think she means for these cat and dog comments.
I don't know. It's a really good question. Could he? You know, there are so many interesting legal questions right now.
I think anyone could almost be sued for anything. That doesn't mean it's going to stick.
And when does something cross the line to domestic terrorism?
Mhm.
I don't know, personally, but there are all kinds of legal lines that, on the one hand, you can think about and define. On the other hand, people will be deciding whether they want to pursue that or not. There are many things happening right now that are testing boundaries, assumptions, patterns, and histories. That's the understatement of the year. Okay, we actually did it, right? We answered the question.
We cleared all the deck. I know that hasn't happened in a long time. Yay, good job, everybody.
Okay, I know it. Okay, so let me explain what's going to happen now. So, particularly for those who are not normally here, what we do now is we're going to segue into the after party. What that means is that we will no longer be recording so that we can be even freer and easier in our conversation and talk about whatever the heck it is we want to talk about. If you beamed in through the NCHE website, stay right where you are, and poof, you will be in the after party. If you are watching us from Facebook, you need to leave Facebook and go to ncheteach.org/conversations. That's ncheteach.org/conversations. And then you too, poof, will be in the after party. I want to thank Annie and Claire and Jessica and John and NCHE, as ever, for being the wonderful people who make this possible. I want to thank the History Matters community for showing up here every week in great numbers to discuss really ultimately democracy in all of its ways and all of the ways in which it plays out, but really America and where it is right now and what history can tell us about it. As I say every week, thank you for engaging in democracy on a Friday morning. This is that. People getting together, asking questions, asking hard questions, engaging with each other, and not necessarily always agreeing. If everyone could do that in some way, or if a lot of people could, that would do a great good for this country. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, anyone can.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we off Facebook? Nope, Facebook's still on.
Okay, Facebook is still on.
It's on
What I'm
Facebook.
saying is anyone can do this.
I texted Claire. She told me to text her when we were done. So
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to monitor chat, listen to you, text Claire.
Okay. The voice has had enough. The voice is like, Freeman. Yeah.
Facebook's still on. How do we turn off Facebook?
Okay. Facebook, yeah. Facebook has to go. See, Facebook, this is what normally happens at the beginning of the after party.
That's so funny. Hello, Facebook people.